and I want to jump right into it. I'll share a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. My name again is Mara Walsh. I am in the United States and specifically between Philadelphia and New York on the East Coast. I started leading physical tours for EF Tours as a Girl Scout leader, taking girls and their families to international destinations every summer. I've since expanded my physical travel program and added adult-only tours as well as family-friendly tours. And if we're ever able to travel for real again, please look us up and join us for one of our tours. In nearly all of my tours, I've partnered with EF Tours as their regular Girl Scout division and also the Go Ahead tour division, which is for their adults. But we do some customized tours as well in addition to that. There are a couple of reasons I started this virtual tour series. One, I really wanted to support the tour director community during this time of travel restrictions where they have not been able to work at all. Most of them have been out for at least a year now. So this was a good way for me to give them a platform to do what they do best, as well as a way for us to tip them for their expertise. And two, I really wanted to keep the excitement of travel alive for my travel group. And I was able to extend that opportunity to those of you who have learned about us through your friends, your family, social media, or other means. So welcome. We've done several tours in the past month since COVID has struck. If you've missed them, you can check them out by using the website printed on the slide, which is girltraveltours.com/virtual-tours. And we have several more that we have on deck for the coming months. And I'm going to share a slide so that you can visually see them as well. We have the Mystery on the Orient Express coming up next week. We have Northern Ireland and the Troubles, Iceland, Lucerne in the Alps, Budapest, the Royals, Ontario and Quebec, and we just added many more for April going into May. We added the Vatican City, a musical tour of Britain, Antarctica, Andalusia, which is southern Spain, Jerusalem, and Belgium. As long as you're interested in viewing these virtual tour presentations, we will continue to produce them and bring you to them on a weekly basis. I know many of you have found my virtual tour events through Facebook, and some of you are on Facebook now viewing this streamed event, so welcome. I just wanted to shout out a little warning and have you all share this warning with your friends on Facebook. We have so many scammers on Facebook that have not only copied legitimate events and pages, but have really taken advantage of people and tried to get credit card information from them. So please do not give credit card information to enter a free event, especially one like my virtual tours. My virtual tour presentations do not require credit cards to join, and you can always safely access the tours on my website, girltraveltours.com, if you choose to go directly into the Zoom webinar from my website. Okay, before we get going, I want to share with you a few ways for you to interact with us through Zoom. Feel free to ask questions to the tour director through the Q&A toolbar. The Q&A button, those questions will be answered at the end of the tour. If you want to just chat with me and give me some information or point out something that you see has gone awry, you can do that in the chat, and I will monitor the chat as well as the Facebook feed that's going on at the same time. I always like to include an interactive poll as well for our audience, and I'm going to launch that poll right now. This is just a good way for us to get to know what your connection is with the region that we're visiting. And tonight we're visiting Santa Fe, New Mexico. So what is your connection to Santa Fe? I've been and I love it. I have a trip booked. I plan to go in the future. I have no set plans, but I'm interested in the destination, or I am solely interested in experiencing it virtually tonight. So I'm going to let some of our responses come in. It looks like we have about 57% of the audience who has been to Santa Fe already. I am not one of them, but I want to add that to my list. So I would be in the third category. I plan to go in the future. I'm going to share my results with the audience so that everybody can see. So again, you see that about 50% love it and who have been, and there's a good 16% who are thinking about going or plan to go in the future. So that's always fun for me to see what people are coming from and what their interest is. Tonight's tour, of all the tours that we do, is scheduled for 90 minutes plus a Q&A. So I just want to give everybody an understanding of what their timing looks like for this. But if you do have to cut out early, that's absolutely fine. All of our tours are recorded and you can view them at a later date when it is your pleasure, you know, when it's okay for you. So a tour would not be complete without a fantastic tour director. And today's tour director is no exception. A tour director is like a personal concierge who stays with your group from start to finish and shares a world of knowledge, manages all your travel plans, and makes for a very stressless trip for you. These are by far the most important people in our group. Of course, if we're not traveling, these guides are not traveling. So later in the presentation, I'll share with you via chat and the Q&A how you can tip the tour director if you are so inclined. All the tips go directly to the tour director once they're collected, minus the operating expenses, mostly the Zoom expenses. So I'm so glad that these virtual tours are keeping us busy, and they're also helping us think about travel. I understand that people even join us on their birthdays for virtual parties. So happy birthday to any of you out there who are celebrating today, and especially a shout out to Laura Kushner, who is actually joining us from Santa Fe tonight to celebrate her birthday. So welcome and happy birthday to all of you. If we were on a tour in real life, I would have the entire bus sing to you happy birthday. But since I feel like I'm a little bit alone in this one, I'm going to save me the embarrassment and just move on from the birthday wishes right now. Today, we will let our tour director do what she does best, which is share her knowledge and passion for travel with all of us. If possible, show your appreciation. We are lucky to have with us tonight CJ Anthony, who will share with us the notable women of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Welcome to the United States and to Santa Fe today. CJ, come on.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
How are you? I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to give it over to you so that you can take control.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am going to share my screen and get all of my slides up. I am so excited to be here. And let me make this big here so you can see it. Hold on a second. Ooh, where did it go? It's not showing me my slide share. Hold on a second here. Move that down. There we go. And one more click. Oh, technology. Yes. Can you see that? Is that good?
Yes, it's good. You are in control.
Great. Thank you so much, Mara. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. My name is CJ Anthony, and I've been a tour guide and a tour director for 20 years. And I have shown people from all over the world the beauty of North America, but the place that I love the most, of course, is New Mexico and Santa Fe. I moved here to New Mexico 15 years ago, and I want to show you a picture of what was going on when I moved here. It was the biggest snowstorm that they had had in half a century. The locals kept telling me it's not usually like this. We have great weather, and they do. We do have great weather. But my husband and my two tiny children, we were in the middle of all of this. And we were from Los Angeles. So yes, it was a big change and a big surprise. But I have to tell you, the locals were right. We have beautiful weather. We have 4 seasons. We have wonderful springs, and we have summers that are not too hot, between 75 and 85 in Santa Fe. And we have the fall colors with the aspens and the cottonwoods. And we have the perfect amount of snow. We have just a light snow, maybe once a month or so. And the locals they were so incredibly helpful. They helped me so much that I found out that Santa Fe is America's top friendliest city, one of them. For several years in a row, we've had that from Travel and Leisure. And I would say that's really true. It's 80,000 people, so it's perfect. It's a perfect size to make friends. Now, I'm going to talk about the present life and the past history in Santa Fe, just briefly, because I really want to get into the walking tour and talk about those amazing women in Santa Fe. Now, here's a photo of the Santa Fe area with the San de Cristo Mountains in the back. San de Cristo means blood of Christ. And our nickname for Santa Fe is the city different, because we are very unique. Santa Fe in Spanish means holy faith. And where's New Mexico? Oh, there it is in the southwest. We are bordered in the west by Arizona, on the east by Texas, and just a little bit of Oklahoma, and Colorado on top. New Mexico's nickname is the land of enchantment because of our natural beauty. We are the 5th largest state in land area, and we are small in population, 2.3 million for the state. That makes us the 37th in population. Santa Fe, as you can see, it's right top center. It's that red star. Santa Fe is the oldest capital city in the United States. It was founded in 1610. And then down below, there we go, there's Albuquerque. It's the largest city in New Mexico. It's an hour south, and it has a population of about 600,000 for the metro area. And you can also see the Rio Grande River. That's our main river through the center of our state, and it's our main water supply. And the Rio Grande is the 5th longest river in the United States. Now, some of you might have heard of this. Santa Fe is having a real estate boom. They call it a Zoom boom. It's people who can work remotely, like for a tech company, and they're in their 30s to their 50s, coming from a big city like New York or Boston, and they're buying houses right now. So they find that the housing is cheaper. We've got the open spaces. We've got lots of nature. The average price for a house in Santa Fe right now is $500,000, which is the highest that it's ever been. In Albuquerque, the average price is $300,000. Now here's some Santa Fe capital facts. We have been the capital of the Spanish territory, the Mexican territory, the US territory, and the state capital. We are the highest capital city in the United States at 7,000 feet in elevation. And that is a picture of our round house. That's the nickname for our state capital. It's the only round state capital. And festivals. Oh, we love to celebrate anything. We have over 80 festivals and events in a year. We celebrate everything from pancakes on the 4th of July, chili, film, wine, and our biggest celebration is the Fiesta de Santa Fe weekend. And it happens between September 1st to the 9th. And it's the nation's oldest community celebration, starting in 1712. It celebrates the Spanish taking Santa Fe back from the Pueblo people. Now, my favorite part of this fiesta is Zozobra. Yes, this happens the first Friday night of September. Zozobra is also called Old Man Gloom. He's a 50-foot tall marionette, and we stuff him with paper. We write down all our worries, our glooms, our concerns, and we shove that in there. people email from all over the world. We put that in. We even put in objects like an old wedding dress from a bad marriage, or your t-shirt from your ex-girlfriend. The police even shred old police reports and put that in there. And then we let it go. We set it on fire. We burn it up. And as a community, it's really bonding to watch this just go on fire and feel like you're letting go of it. Last year, the biggest amount of worries and glooms were burned in 2020. Yes. We also have the International Balloon Fiesta, mostly in Albuquerque, but we have balloons up in Santa Fe as well. It's the second week in October. It's a full week. The schools are even out for a few days. It's the world's largest balloon event. Balloons come from all over the world. And my tip for you, if you come, plan ahead, because all of the hotels book up over a year in advance. The cities double in size. We have great character shape balloons. And of course, we have Yoda too, lots of different shapes. We also have chilies. This is a big part of our culture. New Mexico to chilies is like Florida to oranges. It's like a day without sunshine. I remember people asking me red or green when I moved here. And I found out it's the official state question, red or green. If you're in a restaurant and if you want both, you say Christmas. Green is full of vitamin A, red is full of vitamin C, and it keeps you healthy. We like to eat green chili stew. Yes, if we have a cold. The string of chilies, that's called a ristra, and you hang them around your house, your patios, fences, and they give you good luck. And you could actually take off those chilies and cook with them too. How about one of these? A green chili cheeseburger. This is very popular around here. And I'm going to tell you about another food that's very popular. It was invented in this little dime store. They have a little snack counter in the back in Santa Fe. But Texas says that they invented it too. It's Frito pie. You just put some ground beef in a bag with tomatoes, onions, cheese, peppers, and you just eat it in the bag. Or you could have a Betty Crocker casserole of it too. Our art is a big part of our culture here in Santa Fe. We have over 250 art galleries in Santa Fe in just a 2 square mile area. And we have lots of wonderful outdoor sculptures all over the city. Canyon Road in our town has over 100 art galleries, which is the most densely concentrated area of art galleries in the world. We are the third largest art market after LA and New York. And today we have 4,000 artisans in the city. And to talk more about the culture of our city, we have Santa Fe Opera. We have a beautiful opera company. It's world famous. It started in 1957. It's up on a hill 7 miles outside of Santa Fe. And the theater is open on the sides, as you can see from this picture, but it has a roof. Yes, and it does new operas and traditional during the summer season. We have a very unique tradition of tailgating. So what we do, we eat our dinner in our fancy clothes, our china and candles in the parking lot, and then we go on in and we listen to the opera. Okay, I'm going to talk about past history now. Now think of this as an appetizer plate. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a lot of things. And if there's something that you want to know more of from this presentation, I have made a bibliography that Mara will be emailing out. So you can research and learn more if you'd like. So I'm going to give a little bit of past history so we can get into the women and the walking tour. The Pueblo people. Yes, now Native American history goes back thousands of years, but specific to Santa Fe, the Pueblo people had a village in Santa Fe starting in 900 CE, and it was there for hundreds of years. It was quite extensive. The houses would have stretched a half a mile in each direction from the Santa Fe Plaza area. The Spanish. Now they came to New Mexico in the 1500s, but for Santa Fe, the first Spanish colonists came to the Santa Fe area in 1598. There were 560 settlers that came from Spain, and that makes us one of the oldest European colonies, 13 years before Plymouth Rock. And this monument was dedicated on the 400th anniversary of the Spanish colonists. It's right in the heart of Santa Fe in Cathedral Park, and many people in New Mexico can trace their roots to these people. The people who traveled here are on the top. The families, you've got the mama who was the center of faith, and you have little children, tiny children, 80 children made this dangerous journey. And then you have the priests and soldiers. In the middle of the monument are all the things that they brought with them that were new to the Americas. The rice, pears, coffee, oranges, lemons, sugarcane, the books, and vegetables, tools, and musical instruments for the first time. And on the bottom of the monument are animals that were new to the Americas and introduced as well. You can see cattle, pig, sheep, donkey, goat, horses. This is all called the Columbian Exchange. It is the widespread of goods that happened between the Americas and Europe. The Pueblo Revolt. In the 1600s, there was a lot of persecution of the Pueblo people, and they were used as slaves, they were abused, and they were told that they must give up all of their spiritual beliefs, their religious dances, and that they would have to be baptized. So finally, the Pueblo Revolt of 1680 happened. It was led by Pope, and Pope was a medicine man, a leader. And he planned a revolt to drive the Spanish out and for the natives to go back to their traditional way of life. And it was successful. In fact, it was the first successful native revolt against a colonizing power in the world. But then came Diego de Vargas. He led the Spanish back 12 years later in 1692, and he took back Santa Fe. Now, after all sorts of raids from the Apaches and the Comanches and the drought, the Pueblo people decided on a peace treaty with the Spanish. So as time passed, in the 1700s, there was less conflict between the Pueblo people and the Spanish. The Mexican period. Now, we became a territory of Mexico in 1821 when Mexico got its independence from Spain. And that's just 25 years in the Mexican period. But the most important thing at this time was the Santa Fe Trail. During the Spanish period, there was no trading with anyone, the British, the American, the French. But in the Mexican period, everything opened up for trade. And let me show you this map. It opened trade all over it, it has the water right here that it used, the Ohio River, and then the Santa Fe Trail is in red. And the Santa Fe Trail connected to the El Camino Real, the royal road to Mexico City in Mexico. Let's see how that opened up. The American period. After the US declared war on Mexico, General Stephen Watts Kearny, and that's him there, he raised the American flag above the Santa Fe Plaza and told us that we were now part of the US in 1846. We became a state in 1912. Our beautiful flag is there. We are the 47th state. Our flag has the beautiful Zia symbol on it, right in the center, the ancient symbol from the Zia Pueblo. And as you can see, the symbol points in 4 directions. It represents 4 seasons of the year, 4 periods of the day, 4 points of the compass, and 4 stages of life. So we have a unique charm from having a history of so many different cultures and the artistic city that we are today. So we're going to start our walking tour. Let me put up the map and get a little sip of water. So we're going to start over at the Palace of the Governors. Everything is circled in red that we're going to. We're going around kind of in a circle. So start at the Palace of Governors next to the Santa Fe Plaza. Then over to Cathedral Park on the right. La Fonda Hotel on the right. The Loretto Chapel down below. We're going to visit the old Santa Fe Trail marker too. And then all the way to the left, we'll go to Burrow Alley and the New Mexico Museum of Art. The Palace of the Governors. This is the oldest continuously occupied public building in the United States. It was built in 1610. To give you an idea of that timeline, when the White House was being built, the palace was already 200 years old. It has seen the governors of Spain, Mexico, and the US in the offices. And you can see how long it is too. The government offices were finally completely moved out in 1910 when we became a state. And it became part of the New Mexico History Museum. This is part of the interior. It has a focus on Spanish colonial life in the museum. And here's an old photo of what it would have looked like in 1892 during the territory time period, US territory. The Palace of the Governors was the site of a very popular book at the time that was written there, Lew Wallace. He was also a Civil War general, the territorial governor of New Mexico. He wrote Ben-Hur in the Palace of the Governors in 1880. Now, usually you can shop for Native American jewelry under the portal of the palace. But my tip is if you come, this is a wonderful experience where you can talk to the locals from the pueblos, because all of the jewelry, the artisans are passed by a committee of the museum. So everything is guaranteed. And so everything is real materials, no fake turquoise, but unfortunately, it's been closed during COVID, but hopefully we'll get it back soon. So this is our woman, our amazing woman for this part, Donna Teresa Aguilera y Roche. There are no portraits or drawings of her or her husband, just so you know. From 1659 to 1660, she was the first lady of the Spanish colony. Her story really brings some unexpected insights to the Spanish colonial times. She is the only woman from New Mexico who had to stand trial in front of the Spanish Inquisition. She married her husband, Don Bernardo López de Menzabal. He was appointed to the governor of the Spanish territory in 1658. Now, Santa Fe was small. It was just 800 people. And Donna Teresa, she actually thought Santa Fe was a dump. She didn't like the mud houses, the mud streets, yet she was the first to call it the Palace of Governors, a palace. And she improved things. She put in a courtyard. And Don Bernardo, he worked for the rights of the natives, that they should be paid for their work. And Governor Bernardo allowed the Pueblo people to perform their dances and their religious beliefs. So he made a lot of political enemies. He had a deep falling out with the priests at that time. Bernardo and Teresa were woken up one day at 4 a.m. and they were arrested. They were told that they were being tried by the Spanish Inquisition, which usually resulted in death. And this is the palace of the Inquisition in Mexico City. They were to be brought to. Everything was taken away from them. They were forced to make the long journey, 6 months, to Mexico City. This photo is the title page to their trial document. And you can see the names, their names are in the middle on it, Donna Teresa and Don Bernardo. The Spanish Inquisition was started in 1478 when the rulers, Ferdinand and Isabella, wanted their country to be all Catholic. Teresa was accused of failures of religious practices. She was charged for being secretly Jewish, and she was accused of 47 crimes. She was put in a bare cell with bars, and her charges against her were quite unusual. They were changing linens on Friday, cutting her nails too short, herbal remedies, and one of the charges was that she was bathing too much. She stood trial for 20 months. Teresa defended herself, and she asked for a pen and a paper, and she wrote 28 pages for her defense. And she was able to discredit every witness. And this is a photo of the original writings. She really told the dirt. She told that the sheriff had an illegitimate child, who was stealing, who was having affairs. And to us, the gift she gave us is the writings. They gave us the most accurate account of Spanish colonial life that we have. The writings really showed the social history of Santa Fe. Her writings implicated high officials in New Mexico, so the Inquisition dismissed the charges against Donna. Her husband had died in prison during all of this, and Donna went back to Spain, and she sued the Inquisition. Well, nothing came of it. But she certainly showed us that she was a very intelligent, brave woman who lived in a time that was full of danger. And she gave us the gift of her writings, Donna Teresa. Let me show you the Santa Fe Plaza. This is in front of the Palace of Governors. It's a nice grassy square with trees and benches. And at the end of it is the Santa Fe Trail marker. This marker marks the end of the trail. Now, we've talked about the Santa Fe Trail and how important it was in opening trade. What a dangerous journey. It would have looked like this, a dangerous journey of 1,000 challenging miles. We also have a plaque in the Santa Fe Plaza, the heart of the city, which honors the history of Santa Fe. I want to introduce you to someone who worked on the trail. This is Cathay Williams. She was the first African-American woman to enlist in the United States Army, and by posing as a man. She joined the military in the all-Black unit called the Buffalo Soldiers, and she went by William Cathay. She was born in Independence, Missouri, as a slave. During the Civil War, she worked as a cook for the Union General Philip Sheridan. There's a big name in the war. She enlisted in the Army in 1866 at the age of 22 for 3 years. This is her actual enrollment papers into the Army. You can see on top, William Cathay. See her name right there. There were only 2 others who knew her secret, her cousin and a friend, and both of them were fellow soldiers in her regiment. She was stationed in New Mexico and made the journey through the Santa Fe Trail many times. When she got smallpox, the Army found out that she was a woman in 1868 and immediately discharged her. Here, this is her original discharge papers as William Cathay. And you can see, again, right on the top, William Cathay, a private discharge. Just imagine all the challenges that she had of trying to keep this a secret and the fear of being found out. After her time in the Army, she worked as a cook in Fort Union, New Mexico, as a woman. And she married for a short time, but he stole her horses and her money. She next moved to Trinidad, Colorado, where she made her living as a seamstress. And it was at this time that William's story first became public. There was a reporter that had heard rumors of her story, came to interview her, and her life was published in the St. Louis Daily News in 1876. Later, she got diabetes and she lost her toes and she couldn't walk. Cathay asked for disability payments from the Army, but the doctor refused and denied her claim. This is the paperwork to the denial. If you look down on the right, the red ink, and it says April 18th, 92, claimant informed of rejection. She shortly died after that in 1893. She has an unknown grave. There's no photos of her, but there is this bronze bust of Cathay Williams in Leavenworth, Kansas, and a memorial bench in Georgia in the National Infantry Museum. Cathay Williams certainly had a special determination to serve her country and to live her life as the fullest. Cathay Williams. Now I'm going to take you into this building. Now this is an extra bonus stop. I couldn't mark it on the map because it was too tiny, because it's just a door, but it's a door that changed the world. It's the door to the Manhattan Project, 109 East Palace. This was the top secret project to invent the atomic bomb in World War II. In 1943, J. Robert Oppenheimer was the brilliant head of the Manhattan Project, and he recruited scientists to work for the US government and to live in Los Alamos, which was a small town 35 miles outside of Santa Fe. So thousands of men and women and children spent their war years in this top secret military facility. They lied to their friends and their families about where they were going and what they were doing. The first thing Oppenheimer did was to open a Santa Fe office. The person who ran it was Dorothy McKibben, a Santa Fe local. I've read many things about her that people felt that she was like a lifetime friend when you met her, that she was your best friend that could just help you with anything that you needed. She was called the First Lady of Los Alamos and the Gatekeeper of Los Alamos. This is her ID badge picture. So what Dorothy had to do was when the scientists came to the office, she had to clear them and secretly take them out a back door to a car that was waiting to secretly take them up to Los Alamos. She helped with everything, arranging weddings and parties, as well as her regular work. She controlled a lot of the movement. As one scientist said, she was pretty powerful in the context of the Manhattan Project. Here she is a little bit later in life. When she tried for the job, she only knew that it was named Project Y. She didn't know anything about it. In fact, the day after she interviewed, she saw the interviewer in the middle of the street in Santa Fe, and she yelled out, "Hey, I think I'll take that job." And the interviewer turned around and said, "Do I know you? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who you are." And just completely ignored her. And Dorothy realized at that point that this was a very important job. She was very lively with her duties. At the end of the night, she burned all her paperwork, every scrap, for security. And all the mail came to her office as well. The office, this is the office in the 1950s when it wasn't a secret anymore. And up in Los Alamos, they still had a guard shack even in the 1950s. And this is a ceremony dedicating a plaque in 1963. She kept working until 1963 when they closed the office. And it was very sad because JFK had just visited the offices before he died. This plaque is still up, and I'll read it to you. All the men and women who made the first atomic bomb passed through this portal to their secret mission at Los Alamos. Their creation in 27 months of the weapons that ended World War II was one of the greatest scientific achievements of all time. Now, I also have to show you, oh, there's Dorothy, one last picture. She lived to be 88, the gatekeeper. This is also something I wanted to show. The door today is behind this flower shop and ceramic souvenir shop, but the plaque on the door is still there. People still go to look, but it's kind of a secret in the back of this shop. Let's go over to the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi. This is one of our beautiful crown jewels. There has been a church on this land since 1610. There have been 4 churches. One was burned in the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. The current one was built between 1869 and 1886. It was elevated to a cathedral basilica in 2005 by Pope Benedict XVI. That's a title that is given to select churches in the world. It is Romanesque architecture, and it's made of a local sandstone that's very heavy. Now, this is the original plan for the church. You can see how long the spires were that they wanted to make, but they couldn't. Let's see. This is the church now. You see, they didn't put anything on top. The sandstone was just too heavy to make it. They also had no windows in the front because of the heavy stone. The stained glass windows are all from France. In the late 1800s, they brought them. It always amazes me that they brought them over all that rough terrain and land, and the stained glass was perfect. This is the rose window. This is inside of the church. You can see the rose window and the baptismal fount. And this is a picture of the altar. The altar screen behind shows the Saints of Americas. And this is it close up. You can see St. Francis in the middle and Our Lady of Guadalupe on top. And here, this is very special to us, La Conquistadore. She is known as the Lady of Peace. And this statue came from Spain in the early 1600s and was taken away and rescued when the Pueblo Revolt happened. And it was brought back to the church in 1693. A French priest, Jean-Baptiste Lamy, came in 1851 and he started the cathedral. He is also the inspiration for the character of the bishop in Willa Cather's classic novel, The Death Comes for the Archbishop. And he is buried inside the cathedral. Now, next, I love this story because it's just beautiful. The church ran out of money to build the rest of the church. So the Jewish community decided to help and gave all the money to build the church. It's a wonderful story of the community bonding together, helping each other. And in honor and in thanks of this, there is a symbol for Yahweh, the Hebrew name for God, and it's carved right center in the archway. And here is a blow up of it, as you can see, the symbol, and it's right in the front door, right center in the archway. So the women who are connected to this historic site, this is Saint Kateri. She is the only Native American saint, and we love her. We have this beautiful statue of her outside the church. It just shines. And she is dressed in Pueblo clothes. So she looks like someone who came from a Pueblo, but she was actually a Mohawk. She was from New York, upstate New York, but we have embraced her as one of our own. Saint Kateri was canonized in 2012, and her nickname is the Lily of the Mohawks. She had a smallpox as a child, and it disfigured her. But Saint Kateri defied her tribe, refusing to marry, became Catholic, and at the end of her of her life, one of her miracles is that all of smallpox scars went away at the time of her death. She lived from 1656 to 1680. But people ask me, with a 400-year Catholic history, is there anyone who might be up from sainthood from Santa Fe? Yes, there is one. She is someone who did so much for New Mexico, Sister Blandina Segali, who lived here in the late 1800s. And she is honored with the title of Servant of God and is up for sainthood. She was from Italy, and she was very outspoken and direct. There's one book in the 1960s about her that called her the fastest nun in the West. She spoke out about lynching. Sister Blandina traveled alone in the frontier, which was unheard of at that time. And she worked very hard for Santa Fe. She co-founded the schools in New Mexico. She helped the poor. And Sister Blandina was friends with Billy the Kid. She had treated a friend of Billy's wounds when he was alone in a shack and saved his life. Sister visited Billy in jail many times, and they thought of each other as friends. And here's a picture of Billy the Kid. Sister Blandina said he had the air of a little boy. He was no more than 17 years of age, and he was a troubled teenager. No guidance. She wrote a book. It's her diary, and it's called The End of the Santa Fe Trail. Or there's a second title, too, that I like. It's called An Italian Nun in the West. She died at the age of 91 in Cincinnati. Sister Blandina. Let's go over to La Fonda Hotel now. It's just a block away. This is known as the end of the trail. The hotel was used by traders during the Santa Fe Trail, opening in 1821. The current inn was built in 1926, and it was a Harvey house by Fred Harvey. Fred Harvey was an Englishman who built hotels around the railroad stops all through the West, and so people could have great places to eat and stay. The architect for this building was John Gaw Meem. He made Pueblo Revival style popular, which was a blend of Spanish, Pueblo, and traditional architecture. John Gaume created that Santa Fe style. That's the back of La Fonda. And here's a brochure for the hotel in the 1950s. The hotel is still there, and it's very pricey, but it's wonderful, well located. So there was another architect, Mary Jane Coulter, the interior design architect for Fred Harvey. She had incredible drive and spirit and focus, and she knew what she wanted to design. Her work is all in the Southwest. She used the culture, the natural materials of the environment so that they could blend into the beauty of her work. So how did she get interested in design? When she was 11 years old in Minnesota, she got Sioux Indian artwork from a friend, and it had a huge impact. This is one of the original drawings, and this one as well. She kept these all of her life. In fact, she called them her most prized possession all of her life. This is the inside lobby of the La Fonda. She hired local artists to create the artistic details, the tin, the copper light fixtures, and she used the natural look of the Pueblo and the Spanish colonial within the lobby. You have the paintings, you have the vigas on top, which is the logs on the ceilings. Here is a wall of copper pots from the 1800s that Mary Jane Coulter arranged in the lobby of the La Fonda Hotel to give it a rustic look, and it's still there. This is a little restaurant at La Fonda that she designed that has also that rustic look, and it's a French bakery now. She has 11 buildings on the National Registry of Historical Places. She has 5 National Historic Landmarks, many of them at the Grand Canyon. This one is one of my favorites. It's called the Lookout Studio, the Grand Canyon South Rim. Her style is referred to as a National Park Service rustic. She even designed dishes for Fred Harvey. And Mary Jane designed for 4 decades for the Harvey houses, and she retired to Santa Fe in 1948. She passed away in 1958 at the age of 91. She was a chain-smoking, hard, sometimes driven woman, a strong character, and she lived long enough, sadly, to see some of her buildings destroyed at the end of her life. Mary Jane Coulter. Now, there's someone else that I have to talk about, another group of women for this location. I think maybe some of you know it. The Harvey Girls. Yes, the Harvey Girls. They were the waitresses who came from back east, and they were very proper, polite, good manners, and it was said that they tamed the West. Do you know the Harvey Girls movie? In 1946, starring Judy Garland, this film forever solidified the fame of the Harvey Girls. In 1883, when the Harvey Girls started, they were paid $18.50 a month, plus room and board. That was generous at the time. Here's a little part of Santa Fe Harvey Girl history. This is Beverly and Burnett, and they worked as Harvey Girls at La Fonda in 1955. They were twins. You might see that. And you can see that they have that friendly glow that Harvey Girls made so famous. Here's their uniform with the nice white apron. And how about the shoes? Yes, they wore these shoes all day long. Would you like those shoes, maybe? I don't know. Do you wear them all day? Many waitresses left to get married, but the Harvey girls did help to make the travel of the West very enjoyable. They had refinedness and graciousness in a big frontier land, the Harvey girls. Let's go over to Loretto Chapel. It's just right almost behind La Fonda. This is the most requested place to see on my walking tours. It's the legend of the Miraculous Staircase. It began in 1872. Archbishop Jean-Baptiste Lamy determined that he would build a chapel. And he named it Our Lady of Light Chapel. And he brought in nuns from the Sisters of Loretto to be its caretakers. And they built an all-girls school. Here's a picture of the Sisters of Loretto, but this is not the original sisters that came here to New Mexico. There's no picture of them, but they would have looked like this. This is a picture from 1919. The Sisters of Loretto were definitely notable women of Santa Fe because they gave so much to the girls' school and to attending the historic chapel. There were 6 of them that made the dangerous long journey from their home of Kentucky to Santa Fe, and the Mother Superior died in the middle of the journey. The chapel is built in a Gothic revival style. It's complete with spires and buttresses, stained glass windows, again imported from France. And just before the end of the construction, the architect died. One of the few things left to be constructed was a way to get to the choir loft. So for 9 straight days, the nuns held a prayer vigil. This is the inside interior of the church, asking that St. Joseph the carpenter come for help. This is the inside, and there is more. On the 9th day, soon after the novena ended, a stranger appeared. He was riding a donkey, and he said that he would build them a staircase, but he would need privacy, and the chapel would need to be sealed for 3 months as he worked. So the nuns agreed. And the final result was the perfect spiral staircase for the small chapel. To this day, the man remains a mystery. He only carried with him a small set of simple tools. The entire staircase is made from wood that's not native to New Mexico. It's still unknown where the wood came from. When the staircase was completed, the carpenter disappeared, and many people feel that it was constructed by St. Joseph himself. What is most amazing is the staircase has no central support, and it was constructed without the use of nails. This is one of the wooden pegs. This is a close-up view of what is used. 10 years after its construction, the railings were added for safety. And here is a picture of what it looked like in the early 1960s. We don't do this now, by the way. You can't walk up it if you go to see it today. But this certainly shows how sturdy it is. In the early 2000s, a researcher named Mary Jane Cook found documents that the carpenter might have been a Frenchman of the name of Francois Jean Rochat. His nickname was Frenchie. And this is a receipt that she found for payment to Rochat for $150. You can see that on the second line, a little bit of his last name, and then it has $150. She found this in the archives of the Loretto Mother House. This is the obituary of Frenchie's that was found. And notice what it says. He built the staircase in the Loretto Chapel. It's right in the middle there. He would have had the European skills of carpentry, but we'll never know. Frenchie was killed in his home in southern New Mexico in 1894. Today, the chapel is private. It's not part of the Catholic Church. It's a popular spot for weddings and for concerts. The staircase gave hope and inspiration to those, and still does, that visit it, but it will always be a mystery, Loretto Chapel. Let's walk a few blocks up to Burrow Alley. Now here's a question for you. How do you get firewood in an adobe town with no trees? In the 19th century, Santa Fe trucked it on the backs of burros. The burros would unload in Burrow Alley, and then the wood was sold, and the wood sellers would spend their money in saloons, brothels, because there was a red light district of Santa Fe in the mid-1800s to late 1800s. Today, there's still a street called Burrow Alley, and nowadays it has shops and restaurants. And this is a picture of a life-size Burrow with his wood in bronze, sculpted by Charles Southard in 1988. The legend of Burrow Alley has lived on for years, as you can see in this 50s paperback. And the amazing woman connected to this site is Madame Donna Tules. She had the most famous gambling hall. Her real name was Donna Gertrude Barcelo, but she was also called the Gambling Queen of Santa Fe, or simply the Queen of Sin. She was strong, she was independent, charming, she was very smart, and she was born in Sonora, Mexico. She came with her family to Santa Fe when she was young. She was married at 23 to a rich man, and 23 is actually pretty old in those days to get married. She kept her maiden name, her property, and her money. Donna opened a gambling hall without her husband's name on the deed in 1835. She was a great card dealer. Everyone came to her gambling hall. All the politicians from both sides, the Mexico-American sides, came to her. She was very wealthy at the end of her life. She gave a lot of money to the church, which was very smart. And she was friends with high officials on both sides. She was very good friends with General Manuel Armijo from Mexico and with General Stephen Kearny from the US side. In 1852, she died, and she had a beautiful, big, giant funeral. Her adopted daughters got most of her money, and she was buried in the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis. You know, we're so amazed by her in this New Mexico culture of ours. We have stories of her, as you can see there. I'm not sure of that drawing. We usually make her prettier. That's one of the drawings. She was in a TV show, Death Valley Days, in the early 1960s. Her character was in that. Her character was in the epic musical of Donna Tules, Queen of Hearts, called New Mexico. How about some Donna Tules semi-sweet cider? And there's another ad for the sweet cider. And she's also on the label of a bottle of liqueur mezcal. We just love the story of a successful businesswoman, the gambling queen of Santa Fe. Let's go one block over to our last stop, and it is the New Mexico. Oh, there's one more of Donna with her cigar. It's the New Mexico Museum of Art, and it's my favorite building. in Santa Fe. It's one of 4 state-run museums in Santa Fe. It was built in 1917. The structure itself is it's a work of art. It's considered a masterpiece of Pueblo revival architecture. It's a beautiful blend of the Indian Pueblo and the Spanish colonial style. It has, as you can see, it has this beautiful, rich earth tone. The timbers coming out are called vigas. It also has flat sloping roofs and another side to it. I love the mission statement to this museum. It says, "We bring the art of the world to New Mexico and the art of New Mexico to the world." The New Mexico Museum of Art has 20,000 works of American and European art. And the museum also has a very important collection of Georgia O'Keeffe paintings. We also have the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe. That's a private museum. It's filled with her work, and the collections, they have everything in there. Her personal property, rocks, bones, dresses, paintbrushes. It is small in size, it is large in content. It includes 150 paintings and hundreds of works on paper, like drawings, pastels, watercolors. So let's talk about Georgia O'Keeffe. We love Georgia. We just love her so much. And she loved New Mexico. Georgia O'Keeffe is one of the most significant artists of the 20th century. She was known for her modern art. She was born in 1887, the second of 7 children. And Georgia O'Keeffe grew up on a farm in Wisconsin. And by the time she was out of high school, she knew that she wanted to be an artist. She studied at the Art Institute of Chicago and in New York, where she learned the techniques of painting. Her friend showed some of Georgia's paintings to Alfred Stieglitz, the art dealer and photographer, who would eventually become O'Keeffe's husband. He was the first to exhibit her work in 1916. By the mid-1920s, O'Keeffe was recognized as one of America's most important and successful artists. She was known for her paintings and depictions of flowers. She was also known for her paintings of skyscrapers in New York. In the summer of 1929, O'Keeffe made the first visit of many trips to New Mexico. The stark landscape and the culture inspired her. She loved to paint bones. She said that they seemed so full of life to her. She made the state her permanent home in 1949, 3 years after her husband's death. And this is her home near Ghost Ranch in New Mexico. And it's now owned by the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. It became a National Historic Landmark in 1998. She was very active in painting in New Mexico. This is one of her favorite subjects to paint, Cerro Pedernal and Ghost Ranch. O'Keeffe said, she said about this, "This is my private mountain. It belongs to me. God told me that if I painted it enough, I could have it." In 1977, at the age of 90, she observed, "I can see what I want to paint. The thing that makes you create is still there." She was almost blind at the end of her life, but she continued to create. She had the help of several assistants to help her. Georgia O'Keeffe died in Santa Fe on March 6th, 1986, at the age of 98. Her perception of our landscape and our culture was so inspiring and so unique. Her spirit was inspiring. She had wonderful quotes. And I'd like to read you one of my favorite quotes to conclude our time together. Georgia once said, "I think it's so foolish for people to be happy. Happy is so momentary. You're happy for an instant, and then you start thinking again. Interest is the most important thing in life. Happiness is temporary, but interest is continuous." Georgia was personally unhappy at times in her life, but her interest in art kept her going, always continuous. And lastly, this is a rock that's just in the middle of Santa Fe, and I took a picture of it, and it simply says, "Take time to look." Georgia O'Keeffe. So thank you so much for taking time to look at Santa Fe and allowing me to share my stories with you. So take care and happy trails.
That was awesome. Thank you, CJ. I have never been to Santa Fe, and I have to ask you the first question before we get to the Q&A is the architecture, the traditional architecture, mixed with modern architecture now, or is it truly in the city center of Santa Fe still genuinely historic architecture?
That's an excellent question. So if you were looking like in the suburbs at the new houses, we still have blended in the Pueblo, the Santa Fe style. You can buy something that looks like a flat adobe roof, and it's a brand new home. Or you could buy something that has the vigas, the beams that go in the ceiling, but it's they're not really holding up the ceiling, but they have the fake vigas in the brand new model homes. My house has more of a Spanish colonial look. It has a red tile roof on top.
Are there, I would imagine there's historic districts to the area that you can't build outside of the theme, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Santa Fe, the heart of it, the Santa Fe Plaza, that's a wonderful question. It is protected. Mm-hmm. So it has to be in the theme. It can't be too tall. That's another part. Nothing can be taller than the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis.
That's pretty yes. Interesting.
Yeah.
I took away a couple other things that I need to do is I want to check out that documentary about the Harvey Girls. I think that would be a really fun thing for me to watch.
Yes.
I also wanted to share, coming from Girl Scouts, this is a Girl Scout shirt that I have on. We call those cheetah pies. I think you called it a Cheeto pie. Yes, we call them walking tacos.
Oh, okay.
We take the bag and we walk down the lane and we add the food and then we stir it up and eat it. It's a great campfire. It's a great campfire dinner or snack. So that really hit home for me too. And I know a lot of other people on the tour commented on that. So I don't know if you have had a minute because I've been talking to you.
I've been drinking some water.
I would love for you to open up the Q&A. And for those of you who have enjoyed the tour, please look at the slide that I have up. It gives you some information on how to tip, and I will also add it to the chat as well as the Facebook feed so that you have ways to send CJ a tip if you are so inclined. But we're going to go over to the Q&A at this point. So if you're ready, CJ, you can open up the Q&A on your toolbar and we can start addressing the questions. And for those of you who have joined us on Zoom, feel free to add your questions in at this time so that we can address them as we go.
Yes, these are wonderful questions. We've got, what is the altitude of Santa Fe? That is 7,000. Yes, we are about 1,000. Yeah, just about 1,000 feet higher than Albuquerque, which is just an hour south. So you can see it kind of climbs up. Let's see what. The route the Spaniards took to reach Santa Fe on the Royal Road, the El Camino Real. That was a route for hundreds and hundreds of years that would go from Mexico City all the way up to Santa Fe. Yes. A question, no idea that the Inquisition made it to America. Yes, yes, there was a lot in Mexico. Was Donna Teresa a converso? So that's the word converso, Jew. So during the Spanish Inquisition, many of the Jewish people had to secretly do their practices, or you would be killed or murdered. And so actually, it's interesting. They said they tried her because they thought she was a secret Jew, but there's actually no documents that say that she was. So we'll never know, but there's no documents that she actually was. They might have been just trying to get rid of her, essentially. Dorothy's last name, McGibbon. Dorothy McGibbon, yes. Harvey Girls, they were called Harvey Girls because Fred Harvey was the man from England who started all the Harvey houses. And so, of course, they just had to name them Harvey Girls after the owner, Fred Harvey. Well, I'm glad a lot of people like the staircase. It's so interesting. The Loretto Chapel left the Catholic Church in 1972. The girls' school that was attached had closed in the early 1960s. So I think it was a matter of money that they just didn't have the funding anymore. They're only a block away, really, from the cathedral as well. So they just didn't have it. I think that was part of it when the girls' school closed. The Mexico Museum of Art was built in 1917. Let's see. Oh, about COVID, if the stores are open, yes, we did close down really well. We were really tight in New Mexico, everything closed. We're slowly getting back up. I've been up there, you know, into the gallery area, and I think that part, it depends on the shop. All the restaurants were takeout for a long time. I think we're just starting to open up again. Let's see. Oh, well, about the statistic artwork again. So we have 250 art galleries. Yes. And most of them are on Canyon Road. There's over 100 in Canyon Road. So you can just walk that and just look at everything. Oh, are there Alfred Stieglitz photos of Georgia O'Keeffe in her museum? Yes, they rotate their exhibits because they have so much, and it's a small space. My favorite restaurant in Santa Fe. Boy, that's hard. It depends on what you're looking for. The Shed is really popular and wonderful because it's in a 1600s era house with the low doorways and ceilings. So it's made of adobe, and they've got great food. There's a lot of French food. There's several great French restaurants. There's another one called the Plaza Restaurant in Santa Fe Plaza. That's one of the oldest restaurants, and it has everything. It has Greek and New Mexican, lots of stuff. Let me just type. Let's see. How expensive is it to live in Santa Fe? Well, we have a lot of restaurants. You could eat out every night, and some of them are kind of pricey. So it depends on how you live, I would suppose. The rent is going up as well. That's what I hear, because the housing is going up. But there's suburbs that you can live in that would be a lot cheaper than living more in the heart of Santa Fe. Albuquerque is an hour south. We have a commuter train that runs between Albuquerque, Santa Fe, which is beautiful. So you could live somewhere cheaper in Albuquerque, but then take the train to Santa Fe. Let's see. Let's see, the Folk Art Museum in Santa Fe is wonderful. There's so many museums in Santa Fe, and it's pretty much all still closed. If they had interactive displays, they're going to be closed longer. If it's something where you're not touching anything, which makes sense, those would open first. Skiing in Taos, yes. Taos is an hour and a half from Santa Fe. It's a beautiful drive because you see the Rio Grande River next to you and the canyon walls. It's just lovely. And there's skiing also close to Santa Fe. It's called Ski Santa Fe, and that's very close. I'm probably less than a half hour from Santa Fe. Let's see. Biking in Santa Fe, weather okay? Yes. Yeah, my husband loves to bike in Santa Fe. And so it's flat enough, easy from the Santa Fe Plaza. Let's see. With the pueblos, there are 7 pueblos above Santa Fe. There are 19 pueblos total. And most of them are in New Mexico. There's one in Arizona and there's one in Texas. Pueblo, and by the way, Pueblo means that the land is the original land. It's that they've been there for thousands of years. So we're so lucky to have so many pueblos. A reservation would be that they were moved there, probably like, 150 years ago, that sort of thing. And the pueblos are sovereign states, just like a reservation. They make their own rules. They have their own police department, fire department, all of that. Do rattlesnakes bother me? I've never seen one. And I live kind of on the edge of town where there's this vast amount of empty land. And I haven't seen one out there yet. So I think it's pretty easy. Santa Fe, a very dog-friendly city? Yes. Yes, it's a big thumbs up. There's lots of outdoor patio dining and there's dogs always underneath the patios. The Santa Fe Plaza, you always see dogs, lots of dogs, very friendly to dogs. Opera season this summer, I don't know yet. We'll cross our fingers. Let's see. When is the best time to visit? Well, it depends. I think April and May, the spring, are fantastic. The summers are not bad in Santa Fe, though it's going to be hotter if you go to Albuquerque or down south. And the fall is perfect. And you've got so many celebrations, September and October, very busy, but a great time to come. Let's see. Oh, books. So there is a list of books if you want to read more that I've given a bibliography to Mara. And there's one on there that's just a general history of Santa Fe. The rope, people are wondering about the rope that Pope held for the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. That was their way to communicate. It was a rope with knots in it. And so the Pueblos were far away. Pope had messengers go and give the ropes to every Pueblo. And the idea was that they unknotted a rope every day. When they got to the end of the rope, and they had unknotted the last rope, they knew that that's when they would uprise together. And that's why it was so successful. The Balloon Festival is bigger in Albuquerque. Yes. Oh, our economy in Santa Fe, tourism is huge, of course, but also the government. The state offices are all there. And then art, too. Oh, we don't have too many vendors that put goods out in Santa Fe Plaza, unless it's like a folk arts, a craft show or something like that. It's mostly all inside shops. Oh, do I like green or red? I like Christmas, but I like both red and green. Let's see. Camel Rock. Camel Rock is a very small rock that does look like a camel. And I would say it's like halfway from Santa Fe to Taos. The Turquoise Trail. That's just wonderful. If you rent a car and you can take it from Albuquerque to Santa Fe or Santa Fe to Albuquerque. It's beautiful. You've got beautiful green pine trees and you just keep going and you'll pass a lot of old mining towns, like the town of Madrid, which is also an art colony. So there's lots of history up there, a couple of really nice museums. The Turquoise Trail, there's a little bit of turquoise mines, but not like it was. Let's see. For hiking trails, there's hiking trails all around, depending what it is that you're looking for. If you go to the Jemez Mountains, there's a lot of hiking trails that'll take you to natural hot springs. You'll probably find other people there as well. Or there's like the petroglyphs in Albuquerque that has some nice hiking and you can see the old ancient carvings. So there's quite a bit of hiking. Let's see. When did Jewish people come? They started coming right away to get away from the persecution of Spain. It's really interesting. I've been looking up some articles. There's people just recently who have found that they have a Jewish background because it had to be kept so secret. And then they have found this whole line of the Jewish bloodline. Let's see. Georgia O'Keeffe and Alfred Stieglitz did not have any children. Georgia did not have any kids. She was very close to, in the picture I showed you, his name was Juan Hamilton. That was her assistant for 12 years. And she left a lot of her money to him. So she had people who were very close to her, but she didn't have kids. Let's see. Population of Santa Fe, about 80,000. Let's see. Do I have more on another part of this or? Just looking for more questions.
I think you're getting to the end of the questions, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see. Oh, so this one's interesting. I think this one just popped in as we're closing out. Is Santa Fe a youngster-friendly town? And is there a lot of activity for young travelers that would visit?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, I mean, there's certainly the outdoor life, the restaurants are very open. There's a museum called Meow Wolf, which of course is closed right now, which is an amazing interactive, fun museum experience for like all ages. It's been very popular here, and I know they're going to open more throughout, like in Washington, D.C., I think is the next one. So yes, there's things to do.
That's great. Well, I'm going to say that that's the end of our questions for this evening. I just want to thank you so much, CJ, for joining us and sharing with us your city as well as its notable women. I think that I have taken away some of them that I'm going to go and research a little bit more. And as CJ has said, on the follow-up email that I send out tomorrow, I will share with you a lot more resources that CJ has put together, so that if you do want to do more research on some of the areas and women that she mentioned, they'll be included in the email tomorrow. So just watch out for that. It's about the same time of day, 24 hours later, that you'll receive that. Right. So thank you, CJ, again for joining us. And thank you to everybody who came out today to go to Santa Fe, New Mexico with us. And we will see you next week on the Orient Express. But for now, we'll see you later and have a good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Happy trails.